All right, guys. Here's problem 3. I feel like this is probably the most difficult problem on the midterm, for sure. With that in mind, I said create the following part using any sketch tools you'd like. I didn't want to lock you guys in here. I wanted to see how you might tackle this one. It's definitely a little tricky in the top area with that circular shape and whatnot. There's a lot of angles and stuff going on here, so I said, some hints, not required though. Draw half the sketch and mirror it. And then for the 3-hole pattern here down the side, I said use a linear pattern for the 3 holes. Again, you don't have to, but it's good practice. Good way to maybe save some time and make modifying things in the future a little bit easier. Anyway, with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump over to SolidWorks, and I'll show you how to do the most challenging part here, which is to make this sketch, okay? Give me a second here to switch my screen over to SolidWorks. All right, so this is the last problem. Let me close that one. Let's open a new one here, new part file. All right, so looking at the part, I think I'm going to start on the front plane. No right answer here, but it's oriented to start on the front plane. We know things are symmetric here, so let's go ahead and, let's put a center line going vertically up the middle from the origin. It doesn't need to be that big. Okay. Got our center line. There's some tools we've learned. Let's maybe use dynamic mirror here. So if you go to the tools, sketch tools, and then we have dynamic mirror, we need to select the center line for dynamic mirror, and this is going to allow us to sketch on one side of the line, and as we do that, we'll have the lines popping up on the other side here. So let's go ahead and start with the line tool. Start kind of in the middle here. I'm going to draw a line from the center line straight out, and then straight down, and then over. We'll go up, and then we have this angled line here, and then we'll go vertically up, and then I'm actually just going to go horizontally straight over. We'll mess with that later to get that circular shape on the top, but this is the rough outline I wanted to go for. Something you'll notice here, we're not locked to the origin. Oops, you'll see down here we're not. Oh, we did. It did put in a relation when I drew it in line. So, okay, we are locked to the origin. That's good news. That was something a lot of people are missing. This whole shape would float up and away from the origin. So keep that in mind. You gotta use dimensions or relations to keep yourself locked in some way to the origin. All right, so go ahead, and before we put any dimensions in, we'll get the circular shape up here. So some keys on the circular shape. It needs to be locked to the origin, or sorry, the center line, to keep it in the middle. I could do it here to this midpoint of this line, this upper horizontal line, but I don't really want to be on the midpoint because I'm going to need to trim that away to give it this circular shape, and therefore we'll lose that relation. So I'm going to draw it here on centered on the center line, about that big. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the center of the circle. I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to select the whole horizontal line, and we'll make those coincident. So we're locked to the center line, which keeps it moving left to right, or in the X direction here. And then I put a relation to the entire horizontal line. So even when I trim most of this away, it'll still be in line horizontally with that line. So it won't move in the Y direction or up and down. Okay. The other thing we need here, I'll come back to that in a minute, but we need the little keyway down here. So I'm going to use the same trick I used in the first problem. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to select the midpoint. I'm going to hold Control and select the center line, and I'm going to make those, I'm going to use a coincident relation. So that'll keep the keyway centered as well. Then from the endpoints of the line there, I can draw vertically up till I hit the circle. Make sure those are vertical. That way that these don't end up, these lines stay vertical and don't end up being tangent to this circle, okay? So now I can trim. So let's select our trim tool, take away the pieces here that we didn't need. And then let's just go ahead and make sure everything is doing what it was supposed to. Does the circle stay centered? I don't even know what that point is. Strange. Let's see. Looks like the center point of the circle stays in line with the top. That's key. So we should be good from there. You can see as I move these lines out, they move out together again because I made the center of this line coincident with the center line here. And then everything else is mirrored, so you'll see as we change it on one side, it changes on both sides. So now let's just put in our smart dimensions. We know we want to go for one of the bigger dimensions here. I got the shape roughly correct, so see, this is way off. So change that to 1.25. And everything will scale around that. So now we should be pretty close with the rest of these dimensions, and we shouldn't see a huge amount of change. So it's just being thorough now and getting all the dimensions put in. Let's get this one. 0.75 from the edge, and the outside part of that same piece is 1.25 from the edge. And then again, just be real careful in what you're dimensioning. There's a lot of relations going on here. I'm going to turn that off. If you go up to the eye up here, you can come down here to the relation button. Just turn them off for now. They're still there and they still apply to the model. They're just not in my way. We've got a 0.5 here. We've got 1 inch from the keyway to the top. And then the keyway is 0.5 wide. And it's 0.5 tall. Okay, and then this little edge up here, this is 0.25. And this is 0.75 here on the outside. And I think that should be it. Let me just double check. I mean, it already says I'm fully defined. Let's just verify I didn't do anything wrong here. Okay, everything looks good. We're fully defined. One issue I saw a lot of people having is, is they kept smart dimensioning the circle in order to fully define it. Whereas if you'd just done the proper relations, usually it was that this center circle was not horizontally aligned with the top. That was a big issue. And so if you're missing that relation, you were needing to put something else in that wasn't provided in order to fully define it. You'll see a lot of people made this a 0.5 radius, but it's 0.56 something. So anyway, we don't want that. There shouldn't be a dimension to the circle. The rest of these dimensions and relations should fully define that. So that's probably the most challenging part for everybody, but then we'll go ahead and extrude this. Which direction doesn't really matter, but it's 4 inches. Do that. And then we're going to want to sketch on this side over here. So we'll select sketch. We'll look at that straight on. We need a circle here. I'm going to do a feature pattern when I get done with this. So let's just smart dimension the first circle into place. 1 inch from the side. And let's see. And its center is 0.5 inches up, and it has a diameter of 0.5 inches. Okay, and then we'll just cut that out. Make sure you go through all on this. We want it to go all the way through the part. And then all we need to do is pattern it. So we'll do a linear feature pattern. We'll select our direction here, this bottom line. change the distance to 1 inch apart because that's the distance from each center of each circle. We want 3 copies. And then down here, we just need to select the features. So I'll go to my design tree drop down right here, select the cut. We can see it's patterned correctly. So we'll click the check mark. And that's just, now it's on my design tree. It'll make it easier to go back and edit it later rather than using a sketch pattern. And you can see there's our complete part. All right, hope that helped. If you got any questions, shoot me an email or we can talk during the next class period on Wednesday. Thanks, guys.